Okay, welcome to this particular video lesson, which is going to focus on tackling the question for Macbeth. I've used an AQA exam question, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're following another exam board, you can't actually watch this one as well and pick up some notes. Before I continue, just a reminder to head on over to mrhonline.co.uk, where there are plenty more videos on and video lessons for revision on a wide range of topics on the literature and language courses. Mr. H Online for Mr. H, that's me. Okay, right, let's crack on with this. Okay, so the first thing to be aware of are the assessment objectives. It's a 30-mark question on the AQA plus 4 marks for SPAG, that's the AO4. The 30 marks are divided into AO1, AO2, 12 each, and AO3, which is context, 6 marks. So you can have a read of that. Remember, this might be quite a long video. Do pause and take notes as you go. So AO1 is kind of critically responding to the question. AO2 is analyse language form and structure and talk about effects. Relevant terminology is important. And context, show understanding of the relationship between text and the context in which they were written. So for Shakespeare, when did he write it? Who was the king at the time? What was their feelings towards the supernatural? Did they buy it, believe it, whatever? Okay, and AO4 then 4 marks for SPAG. Okay, so it's a bit blurred. We don't need to see that at the moment. I'm just showing you as an example. This is how the question is typically laid out. And the question I'm looking at is, I'm having to scoot into Zia, is how far you think, start with this speech, explain how far you think Shakespeare presents the witches as powerful. Okay, so you're sitting there in the exam, on the exam day, and you've got the exam paper in front of you, the exam question in front of you. What do you do first? Well, you read the little blurb at the top, because it gives you the context for where this extract comes from in the play. It's important because you may be a bit nervous, you're looking for reassurance, and you want to calm down and reassurance that you actually will be able to find an answer for it. So the first thing you do, read this writing in bold, as it will give you the context of the extract within the play. So this is the opening scene of the play in which the witches are discussing meeting Macbeth. So you're thinking, right, okay, I know that, I'll be able to answer this. Second thing you do is not read the extract, is read the question, underlining or highlighting the key words in this case, the witches are powerful. I'd possibly have a look at the word how as well. That's a reminder that you're going to need to cover techniques, so how Shakespeare presents the witches as powerful in this extract and in the wider play. That's actually the question that I'll walk you through now. So before answering the question, it would be a good idea to jot down a few notes on what you know about the topic. So, for example, the witches as powerful. They represent the supernatural. The supernatural were feared. That indicates a degree of power. They only appear in thunder. Look at the stage direction for the witches. They only appear in thunder. Now, 400 years ago, there was no scientific explanation for what thunder was or what caused thunder. The people actually believed that thunder was a representative of evil forces. So that's interesting that Shakespeare will have them appear, the supernatural, the witches only appear in thunder. They cast spells. Spells are linked to evil power. They're connected to Macbeth. He's the most important character. He's the named character. He's the central protagonist or antagonist as he becomes in the play. And there they align themselves with him straight away by talking about also the language that he uses, and they is quite similar. His opening line in the play is, "So fair and foul a day I have not seen." They predict the future. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? That's a neat trick. They manipulate Macbeth. They play on his weaknesses. They exert power over him. They don't tell him to do anything, but they manipulate him. They introduce ambiguity or confusion at the very beginning, links to one of the central themes of appearance versus reality. Okay, so I've made a few notes there. The witches are important. How do we structure all this knowledge into an exam question? So there's the exam question. Excuse my rather childlike scribbling there. I've just highlighted this extract 2 or 3 minutes and jotted down some notes in relation to the question. So you could do something similar. You don't need to focus on what I've done. This is just an example. You should annotate the exam question in the exam as well, but don't spend 15 minutes on it. you want to spend like 6 or 7 minutes doing this. In the AQA, you've got 52.5 minutes for this question. So 5, 6, 7 minutes at the start to order your thoughts, come up with a few notes. If you plan, it's certainly vital that you do that. And anything from the extract that stands out, okay, that relates to the question. If you've highlighted the witches as powerful, you need to relate everything you're writing back to that point. Okay, so this is what the question looks like. Starting with this speech, or it might say this extract, explain how far you think Shakespeare presents the witches as powerful. Write about how Shakespeare presents the witches in this extract, how Shakespeare presents the witches in the play as a whole. So I've written some notes here for you. So this is the key element of the question. The examiner will be looking at how you apply your knowledge of the play, along with your analytical skills, to this specific question. This means that in every paragraph you will be referencing how the witches are presented, and whether this representation makes them powerful or not. And whatever the question is, that will be the case. Whatever the question is asking, you must refer to it in every single paragraph. So, focusing on the extract, you should identify pieces of evidence that support the points you wish to make. So, how are the witches presented in this extract? Perhaps evil and powerful. Evidence in the stage directions and their familiars. A familiar is a particular item that the witch is associated with, and each witch will have a different familiar. Then explore how the witches are presented elsewhere. For example, thunder is again connected with them when they actually meet Macbeth. They continue to speak in riddles, almost as if they are casting a spell over Macbeth. They manipulate Macbeth, deliberately confusing him, exacerbating his paranoia. He goes to them for guidance and reassurance. He gets the complete opposite, but doesn't realise it. Now jot down some quotations to support this. Insane root, or damned all those that trust them, or none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. Check out one of my other videos on quotations in Macbeth, and I go through each act and lift out 5 or 6 of the most important quotations for you and explain them, and for you to make a note of them so you don't have to. Okay, so that's how the question looks. Now you've got to start answering it. So how do you structure your answer? Well, there are 2 approaches you could take. The first is to write 4 detailed paragraphs, 2 based on the extract and 2 from the wider play. That's addressing each bullet point equally. I've chosen to answer this question this way, but tend to choose the second approach for most questions. The second approach would be to write 3 detailed paragraphs where you incorporate both the extract and the wider play analysis into each point. So when you're talking about the thunder in Act 1, Scene 1, which is this extract, link it to the next scene that we see the witches meet Macbeth, where there is also thunder, and explore what the significance of that is. But whichever approach you take, you need to structure each paragraph so that it contains specific elements the examiner will be looking for. To do this, you should use the following help. Now, I've gone through the mark schemes, and I've paraphrased or lifted out the key bullet points, the key areas that you need to be covering. And this kind of format for each paragraph, and I realise I've cut the top off there, so apologies for that. This format for each paragraph kind of covers everything. P to C. Point, evidence, technique, explanation. Now, reader or audience response. Remember, this is a play, so it will be the audience response. And context. Now, context, if you remember to the mark scheme, is only worth 6 marks, so 20%. So it doesn't need to be in every paragraph. Okay? So you can read through that. Additional key points, so tentative analysis. Now this is important. This will get you into the top band. We don't know definitively what Shakespeare's intentions were. We're offering interpretations, suggestions, inferences. So simply using words like perhaps, or could, or implies, suggests, or however, these little connectives, they show the examiner that you're offering interpretations and alternative interpretations, or multiple interpretations, and that's key to that top band. So to help you achieve higher marks, please remember that your analysis need not be definitive. You should offer alternative interpretations where possible. Simply using connectives such as perhaps or however will assist this. For example, you could write Shakespeare may have wanted the audience to ... however he may also have intended ... and there you go. So a general summary of how to analyse. Link directly to the question at some point in each paragraph. Use the language of the question or synonyms for. So, you know, you've got the word powerful in the question, so talk about manipulative as a synonym for powerful in the context of the witches. Quote to support what you have said, preferably embedded. Embed your evidence. Your analysis will flow so much smoother as a consequence, and I'll show you how to do that for this question. Explain fully the meaning, both implicit and explicit, of why you've selected that piece of quotation to support that point. Use subject terminology, language, form and structure. Use the terminology. Check in with other videos and you'll see examples of that, including this one. Explore the effect on the audience or the writer's intention. So, you know, why Shakespeare has thunder? Well, to intimidate the audience. Explore alternative meanings. Okay, there's a lot on that page. So I'm always asked, sir, do I need to write an introduction for this? Well, not a paragraph of introduction. You want to be, you know, you want to be writing for the full 52 minutes, or you're kind of planning and writing for the full duration that you're allowed. So my advice is a simple sentence summing up the overall significance. So in this case of the witches. So I've got three possible introductory sentences here. The witches appear throughout the play to represent not only the power of the supernatural, but also the constant difficulties in attempting to discern the truth from any situation. That kind of sums up the role of the witches, and it mentions power, which is what the question's asking you. Shakespeare maximises, why is that said, the 17th century audience's fear of the supernatural by intrinsically aligning their evil and ambiguity with Macbeth's own journey. Or, the witches may only appear 4 times throughout the play, but their power and control over Macbeth is profound and ultimately leads to his self-destruction. You know, you can come up with your own one, you can nick one of those 3, whatever. Okay, so your first point. So following on from that introductory sentence, I've written an example of an opening paragraph point you could make. And in the black, I've highlighted where obviously each element of that P to C is. It doesn't have to be in that order, just so long as all the elements are contained within your paragraph. You're allowing the examiner to positively mark, to give you a tick for what you've done. Remember, the examiners, and I'm an examiner myself, the examiners are not instructed to dock marks for what's not there. We are encouraged to positively mark, give you credit for what you have included. So here's an example, and I've pitched it about a 7-8. You can, just so that it's more accessible for everybody. So in this extract, Shakespeare has decided to use his stage directions to open the play in thunderous conditions, develops further with the 3 witches promising to meet again in thunder, lightning or in rain. In the 17th century, it was believed that storms were representative of and released forces of evil. With the first witches' opening reference to possibly meeting again in stormy weather, Shakespeare has immediately introduced them not only as harbingers of evil, willing to unleash their power, shocking a Jacobean audience, but it also hints that they can control the weather, illustrating their potential power. This sets the undercurrent and tone for the rest of the play, further highlighting their importance for Shakespeare, plus their power and significance over Macbeth and the audience. Okay, it's quite straightforward. It's not beyond anybody to come up with a paragraph similar to that. Okay, so again, pause, take notes. See where I've included every element of that P to C structure for each paragraph. Now, for this question, I've just drawn up a little table with some further points you may wish to make for this question. Just ensure that for each point you cover the main elements the examiner will be looking for, that P to C. Okay, I'm not going to read through that with you now. You've got this. You've got the power to pause and to shut me up, but to pause this screen and make a few notes, or just continue and listen to me. Okay, so and finally, just a bit of housekeeping almost. If there's a question you'd like me to focus on and you're a member, then please just email me. If not a member, simply hop on over to mrhonline.co.uk and join, and then email me. Simple. I guarantee to answer any of the questions you may have. Exam style questions like the one I've just worked through here may take a few days, but clearly well worth the wait. Apologies for that emoji. If there's a specific extract you'd like me to focus on and put together a little revision video like this one, then do, when you email me, do indicate which extract that is. maybe with the opening sentence and the closing sentence. Obviously the text would be good, and the act or the chapter, if it's whether it's a play or a novel. And I'll give it the Mr. H online treatment. That's making me cringe even now. Okay, guys, there's plenty in there. Hope you've found value in it, and I'll see you on all the other videos. Cheers now. Bye.